What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Awakening World. We are celebrating this week our 4th anniversary. In other words, we've completed 4 full years of doing Global Peace Tribe shows. And we're going to have our big celebration on Saturday night. But I wanted to establish this week, it's all about being part of the Global Peace Tribe. And we have with us 2 extraordinary men that have been champions for peace, well, really their whole lives, for decades. And it is my great honor to bring back on board our beloved Chief Phil Lane, who established this extraordinary gathering in Palenque that we're going to be learning all about tonight. And his brother, our brother, the amazing Patrick McCollum, who has been a champion for peace also for decades. And if you don't know Patrick's life, we're going to learn a little bit more about that tonight. And we have a special guest that we just added. I am very happy that Claudia, who was also in Palenque, is going to be with us tonight, sharing a little bit about her experience.
By the way, Brother Scott, she's one of the 13 elected council members of the union. Oh, wow. So she's one of the 13 elected council members, of which I'm one as well. We really have it's just a council, so we have, no presidents or whatever, but she's a very, very, very esteemed member of our council and did a tremendous work on Palenque.
Thank you so much for being with us, Claudia. And beloved Brother Phil, would you be willing to start us off with a prayer?
Sure. Ojin Kachla Wakantaka, Creator of the universe, most beloved one, all powerful one, most kind one, most compassionate one, ever forgiving one, oh, most bounteous one, oh, blessed beauty, oh, most powerful one, we call upon your holy power at this time and just give thanksgiving with our hearts full of love, compassion for this beautiful life you've given us, the challenges you've given us that have brought us to this day in which we can see the arising of a whole new global civilization. We give you thanksgiving, Creator, for all our relative to human family. The east, from where comes the red sunrise, all those tribes and nations. The south, where comes to live life, we call upon all those tribes and nations to give thanksgiving. To the west, from where comes thunder, lightning, and rain, we call upon all those tribes and nations to come together. The north, from where comes the white snow, we call them to come together as one heart and one mind and many bodies. And to Father Sky and Mother Earth, we give our utmost thanksgiving. With our hearts full of love, I want to say this prayer it was passed to me in Bolivia from a Christian Judaic tradition that I believe really says this unity that's needed. Oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal unto them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, lead them not to themselves, but guide their steps in the light of knowledge and cheer their hearts with thy love. Verily, thou art their help, my Lord. Hallelujah, chante, washte alo, shunkmano hemeado, chinupasapa emeado, hallelujah, chante, washte, aho, aho. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. It's beautiful. I thought what would be fun is to ask Patrick and you to exchange introductions for each other. And now if you could also introduce, although you started a little bit about Claudia, but Patrick, I'm going to bring you on board. And I've had the opportunity to introduce Phil in my way many times to the audience. What would you love for our audience to know about your experience of Brother Phil?
Well, I met Brother Phil many, many years ago in a different context than we're discussing right now. Both of us were doing work towards world peace and ways of bringing different belief systems together. It may have been at the Parliament of the World's Religions or at another similar event. And I was deeply touched by my early conversations with him. In my world, in our world of the peace world, there are a lot of talkers and not very many doers. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but there are people who, we can go to a giant conference with 10,000 people and say what we're going to do. And when you get done, 5 people, make something happen or whatever. Brother Phil, from the moment I met him till this day, is a doer. Every time he says he's going to do something, he's a man of his word and he steps forward and does it. I see the way that other people honor him and his walk. And we used to have, an old saying that if you want to know a man, look at the trail that he leaves, not so much, how he's walking in front of you. And Brother Phil leaves a very long trail of amazing connections, people, and in different ways of helping people. He's a champion for Mother Earth, for the spirit of all humanity. These are things that I reflect greatly with. And he also is a very wise man. In my tradition, we have a saying that wisdom is the recognition of the absence of knowledge. And Brother Phil and I have had some conversations, and he's the guy who will say right away, I'm not sure exactly what this is or how we're supposed to do it, but I'm going to give it my best shot, And that is the most genuine way that any human being can move forward in the service of the great creator or that which is above and beyond our understanding. And so I'm very honored to walk with my brother Phil and to work together with him in whatever way I can. And I would say that that's kind of an introduction to start with.
Beautiful. Well, Phil, I'm going to ask you to flip it and to share with the audience. What do you want the audience to know about Patrick? I'll put his bio into the chat box, but what do you want to share?
Yes, and by the way, I want to take everything he said about me and put it back towards him, and then build on that. Okay, because I have the same good feelings about him. But I think the thing I love about Patrick is that he has accomplished so many things and has been honored in so many ways, and yet he has such a beautiful humility about him. That's the one part I think that I've seen very, very clearly about my dear brother. I think the other thing that has really touched me is that despite these challenges he had, operations and on his legs and knees and so forth and so on, he's never been one. Yeah, I mean, there's a certain level. I mean, this is, as I know, because I'm suffering the same way in my legs, but it's tough. But always in the positive. We sat there together in those meetings at Palenque for hours upon hours, just sat there. And I know, I know he was, I can tell he was looking over, I was looking over, he just sat right in there, not for everything. He was right there. And I think that his devotion to Indigenous people is just, it goes beyond words. And that's why he was one of the receiver of the Jaguar Award that was given there. And we gave quite a few out because there'd been so many wonderful relatives who had been allies, really incredible allies who've stepped forward and given us a hand over the years and enabled us to come to where we've come to. And Patrick certainly has been that. And we were visiting. We have a dear common close sister, Jane Goodall, Dr. Jane Goodall. And so, you know, we pass good feelings back and forth. And in fact, Patrick, I just got a note back from her when I sent off that news article about what happened. And so immediately he got a hold of her. We had a beautiful video from Jane that greeting all the relatives there at Palenque and showing her support. And she foretold exactly what was going to happen. So I could go on and on. I mean, so add what Patrick said about me, mirroring it right back to him, because he couldn't see it in me unless he had it in him. I'd always say that, you know, people compliment us. And really, if we see good qualities in somebody, and wow, those are beautiful qualities. If we didn't have the qualities ourselves, we couldn't see them in them. You know, if there's something that touches us in our hearts, you know, if it wasn't touching their hearts, it wouldn't touch our hearts. You know, so that's what I would say. And I could go on about Patrick, but his devotion. And we realize too, I think in our discussions, we realize that we're kind of in the winter time of our lives, so to speak, and that we're gonna try the best we can to make these last years our very best.
Wow.
And I think, well, I mean, you know, that's how we have to be, right, Scott?
Absolutely,
This
absolutely.
has to be. This has to be. And so happy too that our dear sister Nan Claudia joined us too as well. She's what an outstanding human being from the beautiful colonial nation state of Guatemala, but who's related right there through Mexico, that whole area of the indigenous people. So I would give that for the introduction. Yeah, I'd give him a 10 in every 5 category.
And tell
How's
us a
that?
little bit.
You can't do better than that.
Absolutely. And tell us about Claudia. Tell us a little bit more about Claudia, please.
Well, you know, I had the great opportunity to meet Claudia when we had our first gathering in Palenque a year ago, last March 17th when it began. And I mean, to meet her personally, I had met her, you know, online, but to meet her personally. And somebody with just an open, loving heart that is dedicated to seeing peace in the world. And she and her, did you and your beloved husband drive all the way down? They drove all the way down from close to Toronto, all that way. So she's a Mayan living in Canada, yet still deeply connected with her Mayan background. It was so beautiful to see. The Mayan ceremony was just outstanding, just to the T.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my introductions, and I think that she can really give us a Nan Claudia when she gets have opportunity can give you her take on the whole thing too.
I'd like to say something about her also.
Patrick, you got a chance to meet Patrick with her. Yes.
Oh, here's what you don't know, Brother Phil. It was a reunion for Claudia and I, which we hadn't seen each other for like 15 years.
Really?
In Palenque, and we go way back. Our hearts and spirits have traveled together for decades. And we used to camp together out in the wilderness long ago. Many stories to be told in the future. But when we saw each other in Palenque, it was an amazing moment. And I am so, above all the incredible things we did, I am so enjoy to be reconnected with my sisters. I just wanted to let you know I actually reconnected with Claudia myself.
Yes. Yes.
You know, it's beautiful how we're all coming together. And I say this almost every week, but I truly believe that it's the great analogy of the butterfly. The old paradigm of this planet, like a caterpillar, has gone into totally unsustainable practices and has eaten so much that it's killing itself and is dying. And in that dying caterpillar are all these imaginal cells. There's Chief Phil Lane, there's Claudia, there's Patrick, there's all the members of the Global Peace Tribe like Sylvia and Roger and Bonnie and Pat and Connie. And all these imaginal cells are finding each other. And as we find each other, we are creating the new paradigm. We are creating the butterfly out of the caterpillar. And it's magical. It's extraordinary how many of us have been doing this work in so many ways. And but now we're all coming together. It's almost like a grand finale. It's like, this is it, the final act of the play, of the movie, where it all comes together. And that's kind of my segue to you, Phil, to please share with us your vision and how Palenque was a big part of that vision. I am going to pin myself for a moment and move out of the way, because perhaps you might want to share with people about this photograph, which I use as my backdrop for almost everything. The photograph from the 8th fire, and then take it from the 8th fire to Palenque.
Yes. Well, in fact, let me, if I may, step back just a little bit further to give some context here.
Sure.
Thanks, Scott. So if we can imagine a little over 500 years ago, there was around, the estimates are around somewhere between 100 and 108 million indigenous people living across the Americas. And that number was reduced by the middle 1700s to about maybe 10 or 15 million. And of course, just like the buffalo went from 6 million to 400 and just, 60 million to maybe 1,000 or less than 1,000 in a short time. So that happened. But of course, today, there's about almost 80 million indigenous people by UN standards. There's many, many more that have indigenous background who are like myself and has some European background, but also members of tribes on both sides of my family. But so north of the U.S. border in Canada, the United States, there's about 8 million indigenous people. South, there's 72 million. Plus, many, many, many more to the south that may not yet identify themselves as indigenous people, but are. So these prophecies that we have here in the Americas are like prophecies everywhere in the world. Prophecies have played a role in human history for a long time. Sometimes the prophecy has proven not to be true, but in time, if a prophecy is true over time, little by little, you see it actually happen. I'll give you an example. For a number of tribes, including up in Alaska, to the south, there was a prophecy about the eagle. When the eagle flew to the moon and landed, that this would be a new day, a new beginning, a new, you might say, birth for indigenous people would come back, as all these prophecies promised. Well, of course, it said that this would happen when an eagle would land on the moon. Now, you can imagine an eagle landing on the moon. We're talking about a prophecy over 500 years old about an eagle landing on the moon. And of course, what happened was, of course, it was 1971, 71, the first rocket landed on the moon. The eagle has landed. So there's many prophecies that talk about in the Americas that this long spiritual wintertime would come. Black Elk's prophecies talk about this long journey up this hill until finally they make it to the top, and that's where he sees the vision in the red, yellow, black, and white circle and so forth. That's a common thing of showing the unity of the human family. So really, Palenque begins way, way back before Europeans actually arrived here in the Americas. This goes clear back to Tiwanaku, the civilization before the Incas. This prophecy comes out. And one of the great brothers that's on our council, Marcelo, has really a deep background in terms of the prophecy and how it fits and so forth. So this prophecy promised that after a period of about 500 years and this long spiritual wintertime, an eagle would come from the north to the south to Bolivia. And when that reunion happened, that would lead to the uniting of the indigenous people of the Americas, which would then be, you might say, a template or a path that would eventually involve the entire human family coming together. So when we were able to come together for the first time, the union of the Condor, Hummingbird, Quetzal, and Eagle, that was in Palenque, March 17th through the 22nd of last year, of 2023. And now it's interesting because in that prophecy, it talked about these other the hummingbird. I mean, it talks about this unification of indigenous people across the Americas, but there's no hummingbirds and eagles flying around Central America like they are here. There's none in the Amazon. So when we began following up and from that, really it was just a vision at Lake Titicaca that saw this all happening. When we began going down into the Central America, we thought maybe was it the boa? What is that symbol that unites the people there? Is it the boa? Is it the jaguar? And then boom, Quetzal. And of course, Palenque is the heart of the Quetzal. Beautiful. And then really it wasn't until the year 2000 that during Enlightening Our Way Together in December 2020, in which we really made deep contact. We'd already been doing that already for years, but then the hummingbird emerges from the Amazon. So there you have it. That is symbolically the coming together in the indigenous people of the Americas, which then sets the foundation for the unification of the human family. And that was one of the initiatives that we launched on the 18th of March when we ignited the 8th fire, which was, you saw a picture behind you, that was actually ignited on the 28th of October in Hidalgo, Mexico, which fulfilled another prophecy. This fire talked about this 8th fire would become the time when we'd have a choice to come together and to walk this path together in unity and forgiveness and love and harmony, and move into a whole new way of living on this Mother Earth, or make a choice to go down the tube as we're going now. And we made the choice there to initiate a global peace movement, an indigenous ally-led peace movement beginning here in the Americas. That was one of the initiatives, the other was, but beginning here. Because as it was shared at the 8th fire, how in the world do we have the right to go to somebody else's home and tell them how to live and how to behave when our home's a mess? So that's why we wanted to focus right here. So I'm going to put a check mark there. That kind of brings us up to date. And then I know that both Brother Patrick and Nan Claudia also would have their perspectives on these prophecies. I'd love to hear what your thought on it.
Sure. Thank you, first of all, for the history. And Patrick, yeah, let's go to you, because I know you've been doing a lot of work with the people in South America and the Amazon. So go ahead and tell us about your background and kind of how, your peace efforts and what you've heard about and learned and experienced with our indigenous families coming together with the South and the North.
Sure. So I have to go back a ways to share that my primary work for about the last 50 years or so has been trying to create world peace and a sustainable planet, which I believe are obviously entwined and have to both be happening at the same time to have peace or a sustainable planet. And many, many years ago, I mean, like more than 50 years ago, I started helping fight for Native American rights and other indigenous people's rights, particularly in the South Pacific, because my family had lived there for quite a long time out in the South Pacific. But I have ancestors in my family who suffered through some of the hardships that many of the indigenous peoples, particularly of the Americas, Canada, and such, have suffered. And so, while I don't consider myself indigenous, I consider myself Irish. I have both Ponca and Blackfoot on two different sides of my family. My grandfather was raised on a reservation, so I know a little bit about that background. So that made me wanting to help in many different ways for indigenous peoples. But the thing that I became the very best at in my career was learning how to talk to very high-level leaders in countries, both spiritual leaders and also political leaders, and eventually help guide some of them on major decisions around wars and conflicts and things like that. So there came a point, this is about 12 years ago, where all of a sudden a Mamo from the Kogi people met with me in India and said, we need you to come to the Amazon to help us because we're trying to figure out how to save the Amazon, but there's all these, what they call the people of the concrete, have laws and governments and all these things that we don't understand how to take on, but you do. And so we want you to come help us. And at that time, I never really knew anything about the Amazon or any of that. So I said, I think you got the wrong guy. You know, I don't even know how stuff works down there. I've never been there. You know, I understand fighting for a sweat lodge in the prisons of the military, but I don't know, you know, what I would do in the Amazon. So I let that slide by for a while. I helped create a gathering in India called the or the Kiva Kumbh Mela in Allahabad, India. I had been part of an event that 100 million people physically come to, and with a couple other gurus, we got together and helped to create a kiva and invited indigenous elders from something like 100 countries to come participate in ceremony at the most sacred place in India, surrounded by 100 million pilgrims. And we went ahead and made that happen. It was very successful. And in the course of that, a coalition of indigenous elders representing 4 particular types of peoples, they call themselves the jaguar people, the hummingbird people, the anaconda people, and the condor people, sent representatives. And they came to me and said that they had a vision that I was supposed to come to the Amazon and help like bring them together, not save the Amazon or something me, but help them to coordinate and come together as a unit so they could use their wisdom to take back the sacred lands and to save the Amazon, which in turn could save all the people on the planet, since most of the air we breathe and the clean water that we drink all comes from there. So I went to the Amazon, started a project, and in about 3 years, I have managed to successfully bring together about 300,000 indigenous people as a unit, which I'm still working on because there's like 1.5 million still down there to talk to. Because of the amazing stuff Brother Phil's been doing, and I've been following this coming up, and because there are these different prophecies coming together, and it was talking about the North and the South coming together and these different things, the elders in the Amazon were asking me what was happening, you know, what was happening with their brothers and sisters that were this eagle condor coming together stuff. And so I got a hold of Brother Phil, and I just said, you know, you're trying to bring all these people together, and I'm trying to bring all these people together, and we all got a bunch of people, and we all have the same goals. And our larger goal of taking care of the entire planet is the same one. Why don't we, you know, join hands and try to do that together? And Brother Phil was really gracious, and he invited me immediately to come to Palenque, which I did. And that turned into many amazing things, which I think we can talk further about. But that's how I ended up getting there. The other thing I'll tell you in the background that's just an odd thing, besides being invited by the elders to come, I also had 2 events happen to me which were unplanned. The one was that a chief of the Anishinaabe people carried the pipe for the 7 fires prophecy. And he had been told by his elder that I should smoke that pipe. Why in the world I should smoke that pipe? I mean, you know, I have no idea. But I ended up doing that, and that is what evolves into the 7 fires and the 8th fire that Brother Phil's talking about, that becomes the turning point for everything. So I feel connected to Brother Phil and what he's doing through that ceremony. And there was one other like that, which I won't go into. And then that brought us together in Palenque, and I think we could probably talk about what happened there, starting from that point.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Patrick, thank you so much for your lifelong dedication to peace. And we're going to be hearing more from Patrick and celebrating Patrick because his birthday is coming up. But let's stay with this right now. And Claudia, I'm putting the spotlight on you. I would love to now hear your journey. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your life history, and then kind of the road from all the way from in Canada all the way down to Palenque. But share with us your journey, please. And yeah, there you go.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here. It was great to be in Palenque. I was born and raised in Ontario, Canada, and I have very, very deep roots in Guatemala. All my family's there. My parents moved back there about 34, 35 years ago. So I've been making a yearly journey. Just before COVID, I was planning on doing it by land, and braiding certain energies was my idea. Braiding the land, braiding the energy of the water, you know, doing ceremony in the different places as I came down. Like Patrick was saying earlier, I've been doing gatherings for, you know, about 2 decades now. And first and foremost, I'm a channeler. I'm a medium, and I work with the ancestors. So they were guiding me to kind of do this journey on land. You miss so much by doing it in the plane. And the last time and only time I had done the journey by land was when my parents moved back to Guatemala 34 years ago. The prophecy for me is something that I'm not really sure where I picked it up. Since I was a young girl, I was speaking about it to my parents. I always understood bits and pieces of the prophecy and what they represented. And now that I've been working with the energies, and I was initiated as a Mayan timekeeper, Ashkish, a handful of years ago, I'm realizing the energy that the North, that the center, that the South, that Europe, that all of the different races and peoples bring, you know, and the diversity and how we need to unify, and all the beautiful treasures and individuality and individual medicines that we all hold and have to make this work and to make this abundance and beautiful for everyone. So February 8th, I decided this year, since the borders and everything are open, that I would get a trailer, an RV. We called her Destiny, aka my casita. And my partner is a brave man and just crazy and just kind of joins the ride and supports me. And we've stopped and collected water from the Mississippi River, the Ohio River, where they converge from the Pacific Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, Lake Atitlan. So just kind of taking the energy all the way down to Guatemala. I did an 8th fire burn in Guatemala. Then we did the one in Palenque. And since then, I've done one here in Texas. And on the way home, also in San Antonio, I was able to meet another brother, Keith Spence, where I handed off some ashes to him. And those ashes, from what I heard earlier, went off to Europe and are being dispersed by him. So again, just kind of spreading out the energy. And Palenque was a beautiful gathering, and just really honored to be a part of the council, to be a part of the amazing event and the group of people that were united there. So thank you.
Well, we always love to read comments from the audience. So I'm going to read a few comments that have come in, and then there's also a question. Grace Denise writes, I love your sharing, Chief Phil. I'm feeling a wonderful sense of peace now because I just donated to help the Palestinians in Rafah today. You know, speaking of donations, I want to thank all of you Global Peace Tribers that donated to the GoFundMe that helped pay for the Palenque visit. So I know many of you donated when we did a couple of fundraising pitches. So thank you everybody for your donations. There's a wonderful comment here from our beloved Connie of Connie and Andrew. She writes, Patrick and Phil are catalyzing such a wonderful realization of the prophecy. I connected, Connie talking about herself, with Brother Phil and others in the 90s. It is the destiny of the people of the Americas to come together as one family and show the world how to live in peace through the freedom of the human spirit. Sharon has a question for you, Patrick. She says, Patrick, will you please weave the Standing Rock story into the sacred fires? I heard this story from you at the Sunrise Center. Great gratitude to you for your love and devotion to the people. So I'm putting the spotlight on you to respond to Sharon's request.
Sure. Well, to start with, I think that Standing Rock served as a great kind of example of what Brother Phil and I stand for and are trying to bring attention to in the world, is that on one hand, there are tremendous forces supported by greed and money and things like this. And it's not bad to have money or to want things, but there's a place where you cross the barrier where when you're destroying your own planet and your own people and things that are sacred, it's going too far. So at Standing Rock, I had an amazing honor in that one of our other brothers, chiefs, Chief Arvel Looking Horse, had reached out, and they were creating strategies for how to deal with something that literally nobody ever dealt with before. I mean, this was maybe even like the real Wounded Knee and such. They didn't have tanks and helicopters and water cannons and, you know, stuff like that. So the indigenous people were being unarmed, literally saying, don't destroy this land, standing there having a peaceful protest, and they were getting sprayed with insecticide. Our firewood and heat was all cut off. Our food supplies were cut off. Our water supplies were cut off. All sanitation was cut off. And we had 6,000 people on site that we were trying to care for. And so I got to help play a part in creating the strategy, like, how do we win? And in the end, for those who don't know, we did win. I mean, we got the Army Corps of Engineers to refuse the order of the President of the United States to, you know, move the thing forward. But as most people know, we won, and slightly afterward, we had a new president. The new president said, I don't care what was happened here, what the law said or anything else. We're putting this pipeline in, we're going to destroy the sacred land. We're going across this river. And he just did it. We've now fought a battle for years and years in the courts, and we won recently that all of the things that we were standing for were right, and all of the things that the oil companies and the multinational corporations and everything did were wrong. The reason that this stand is important to me at Standing Rock, it showed me for the first time, and Brother Phil can speak to it himself, the kind of power that we can have when we connect with people of like mind and spirit that care about the planet, care about spirituality, care about diversity. We were able, literally on site, we were in a big dome, those of us who were strategizing, we were talking about what new allies we had today. And we had days where myself or someone else would step forward and say, we had 900,000 new allies today. And it ran into millions and millions of people all over the planet supporting us to get us where we need to go. What Brother Phil's dream is to see the indigenous people uniting together with their wisdom, who have done really a better job throughout all history of taking care of their lands and sort of learning how to live in relationship to Mother Earth itself. But we're facing those same forces that we faced at Standing Rock. And so we're in a unique place that when you have enough numbers and you have enough people who are in the same line of spirit and connected and see each person standing next to them as a kindred match, nothing can stand against you. And when I went to Palenque with Brother Phil, I saw the power of this. Millions and millions of indigenous people were represented by the elders who came there. And they all had the same dream. Some had different prophecies or ways they interpreted it, but the end goal of those prophecies all wore and wove together to such a degree that when we came together, we were all brothers and sisters with no need to really talk about it. We all knew what needed to be done. So I think there's a direct correlation between Standing Rock and what's happening now. I think Brother Phil's version is a giant Standing Rock, and that allies from all over the world can join together and we can stop the destruction the same way that we did there in the Dakotas.
Yep.
Mhm.
You know, brother, thank you for reminding me, because when I was introducing you, there were so many things to say, but I'm glad you reminded me how you worked in the California state system to bring the Inikaka, the sweat lodge, into the prisons there, because of course that's what I was doing back in 1969 at Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, where we got the first sweat lodge in there, in the lodge there. And there's so many parallels as I'm listening to you. And I think that you know, I had the opportunity to go to Standing Rock twice during that whole gathering, and it was something to see how all these relatives from the human family were there together. You know, really with a common goal and vision in mind. You know, and it was young people, the seventh generation, who really stood up, and also women, so important. We so emphasized in our gathering in Palenque is womankind, the incredible importance of womankind leading this moment, and that's that part of ourselves. Because I want to say, after saying that, I want to say that from my perspective, the soul has no gender, the soul has no race, the soul has no ethnicity, the soul has no class. The soul is a reflection of the oneness of our Creator. You know, so I would say this, that all these qualities that some people call the divine feminine, the divine masculine, so really, we as human beings have all these sacred qualities. And we need to really, especially as men, or who have a lot of these other qualities we might call masculine, some qualities called masculine, some called feminine. We need to step back and gather all the qualities, so we have that incredible quality. We need to step back and gather all. Exactly. So anyway, I just want to say, I'm so pleased to remind me of that, those brothers in the penitentiary there. We get those sweat lodges in there, and now they're in Canada. They're in every institution, both the federal and the state joints in provincial prisons. They're there. So that's another one we've got to remember on that, Patrick.
I'm going to bring Claudia in for a moment again.
Yes,
because there's a couple of comments for Claudia.
please.
First of all, people were very, very touched by your story, Claudia. Susan Blomquist writes, Claudia is a sister of the earth in service to us all. Mannion wrote, I love your story, Claudia. And Shonda wrote, a heartfelt thank you to Claudia for hand delivering the Palenque ash bundle to our Texas 8th Fire Continuum firekeeper. So thank you for passing that on. I also participated in a follow-up fire. I was on retreat with the Twin Ray, who of course, Chief Phil has grown quite close to, and they're my beloved friends. And we had a big before sunrise fire at the same time that you were all in Palenque. So, you know, the eighth fire is carrying out both physically through fires and of course through the fire in our hearts.
Yes. By the way, just Shawanda, by the way, is the one that's been doing so much work and sharing these ashes. I don't know where all she shared them. It'd be interesting to find out how far they're going.
Oh, Shawanda, if you want to answer that, I see you in the Zoom room, so I am going to add you. And yeah, do you want to share with us, Shawanda?
Thank you, Scott. I do apologize. My camera's down, so I'll just turn on my picture here. Yes, the Brother Phil contacted us a week ago Monday, telling us of his union with Brother Matthias, who is the facilitator of the Sacred Infinite Fire Festival, which has branched all over Europe. And his wish to get the eighth fire ashes to Brother Matthias. And it was Nan Claudia that made that possible. She brought that bundle up from Palenque, dropped it off in Texas, and we were able to get that in airmail, as well as several other Sister Susanna Cusack. She does the mail outs in Sweden. So she mailed to the firekeeper in Sweden. Sister Lynn Brody does the UK mail out. So we've got distribution points in the UK and Canada, several in the US, and now in Australia and Europe as well. So it's an amazing journey, and we look forward to working with Michael Kraus with Unify to get the star map up on the eighth fire. Thank you, Scott.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I want to read some comments coming in from our wonderful audience. Janice Hall writes, and I congratulate you on the council now, dearest Nan Claudia, who accompanies us every month on our secret prayers of 22 women founded by Brother Phil. Jerry Anderson, our wild monk from the Mystic Monastery, we love Jerry, writes, Standing Rock was the longest prayer meeting in history, as the prayers were 24 hours a day for months. I was one of the drone pilots doing 6 trips recording the story, and his video is in the chat box if anybody wants to read that. Our beloved soul sister Connie is in Australia right now carrying our good word, and she writes, it's so exciting that this energy is manifesting here in Australia with the Meeting the Dreaming, a year-long initiative starting with honoring the 50th anniversary of the presentation of the 42,000-year-old Mungal man to Jim Bowler. This initiative is to open the Western mind to the Aboriginal Dreamtime connection to the sacredness and oneness of all creation. And there it is again, you know, whether it's the Aboriginal vision, whether it's the Condor and the Eagle vision, whether it's what Patrick has been speaking of, you know, everybody gets their own unique take on it, but we're all receiving a very, very common vision. And I'd love to hear from each of you, your personal take on our future. Where are we going? And I'll start with you, beloved Brother Phil.
Well, okay. From my perspective, we can liken the unfolding of our human family like you can an individual human being. From infancy to childhood to adolescence, and now we're just at the verge of our spiritual maturity. We might say we're in that adolescent stage. But you know, all these prophecies, and again, any prophecy you can interpret many ways because they're spiritual, therefore they're infinite in meaning. It's like anything that you maybe understood 40, 50 years ago, some kind of a spiritual topic. Now, 40 years later, you can see it in a different way. So, at this point, peace is not only possible, it's inevitable. Whether we have to reach peace through tremendous deepening of the conflict on Mother Earth and the loss of life and the horrific things we see right now, or we make a choice. And that's what we believe we're come to, this nexus point. We make a choice. The choice is what we call the fourth way. One way being assimilation. That's one way people have dealt with oppression. It doesn't work. Another way is resignation, giving up, completely giving up, or, you know, falling into the underworld, so to speak, or just to fight. And I tell you, that was my style for a good part of my life. Not, by the way, that doesn't mean you don't struggle, but I'm talking about feelings inside. Because, you know, those feelings, we have to let go of those. So anyway, what I see is we're in the birth canal. We have some tremendous contractions ahead of us, but this is bringing us together. It's having us see what's really real and what's not real. And in the end, without question, all the prophecies, without question, promise that in the end, we will come through this. You might say a challenge, stronger than ever before, and it's spiritually awakened. And really, I think that what Brother Patrick said at the very beginning of the two things he wanted to do is what very well is succinctly given in this you might say sacred covenant that goes along with what we did in Palenque. Unite humanity. Restore Mother Earth. That's the sacred covenant. Unite humanity. Unite humanity. Restore Mother Earth. That right there summarizes our tip of the arrow. And of course, with that, we've been working the last 50 years, and we have quite a detailed you might say, set of guiding principles of consultation, the whole, you might say, framework for a new global civilization we've put together. Now, what I would say is this. One more thing I want to add here, if I may. This whole thing about cultural appropriation, I've been really deeply looking at this. And, you know, if we think about it, you know, if we were all right now to say, okay, please remove everything from your being, from your home, from your life that was not directly made from your own culture. Well, shoot. And this kind of has a native design, but man, I think this was made, I think my wife got this for me at Walmart. I don't think a native person made that. And, oh, shoot, that cell phone. Well, shoot, that's not part of my culture. What am I doing on this doggone Zoom thing for? That's not part of my culture. Get rid of that thing. You know what? So what I'm saying is, let's get right down to the bottom of this cultural appropriation thing. I mean, you know, everything, first of all, comes from the Creator. That's the number one thing. All of it comes from the Creator. And that's why I believe we have to reframe the last 500 years to understand this was not a punishment, it was a preparation for all of us for this next stage of human growth and development that we're just entering now. That's what I see, not a punishment. Because as long as we see that, then how in the world can we see our Creator the way our elders teach us about our Creator? Why would our Creator come and just punish us for nothing? No, there's a higher purpose in this life that we sometimes don't, we have to get, once we get to it, oh, just a minute now, that makes sense. Wow. It's like Standing Rock. Wow. In the end, what did it lead to?
Thank you so much. I'm going to call on Patrick and Claudia in a moment to hear their visions for the future. Yes. But there's so many comments coming in, and I want to read a few more of them from our audience. And Phil, a reminder to put the proper link to where you want me to go which of your websites you want me to go to. If you put that in the website. Christy Michaels writes that Janice sent me the 8th fire for the Magdalene Moonrise Easter celebration that she just had, which Patrick was a part of. And they celebrated the fulfillment of the prophecy to remember and discuss. So thank you for that. And we love you very much, Christy. Connie writes, Brother Phil is bringing such a high vibration from the universal knowing, from the from the universal knowing, from the indigenous heart of humanity. We are all indigenous. It is in our deep knowing, deep in the dream time. And a little bit later, Connie, I think Ben Bowler is going to come on board and we'll talk a little bit about what you guys are up to in Australia. I also want to read from Doug May. Dia writes, my heritage is in the Dakotas. I'm very grateful to have learned tonight more about the Standing Rock history. Yes, to hear that we won was deliciously meaningful. Doug May, thank you so much for the many ways that Doug has been supporting our Global Peace Tribe by coming up with links and all sorts of support. And want to appreciate and acknowledge you. And I think those are the messages. And Sylvia writes, very grateful to be present with the gathering in Palenque through the Global Fire Ceremony Room that was put together by One World, and Shonda's being a liaison to help us participate from all around the world. Sylvia especially appreciated the modeling of shared leadership and the inclusion of such a rich tapestry of perspectives, including various species of our relations. Thank you. And Dorina just wrote in a question. So if Patrick or Claudia is just sharing your vision, if you want to respond to her question, she writes, thank you all for your lifetime of inner and outer work with so much dedication, passion, and love in action. What has lifted you each up and inspired you the most during the hardest moments and times in your journey? Great question, Dorina. We'll go to Patrick and then we'll go to Claudia.
Well, so on that question, we all have our different things that kind of guide us and bring along. And one of the things that I would share without going into detail is in 1965, when I was 15 years old, I was hit by a drunk driver and pronounced dead. I was 15 years old and I was dead for a little over 7 minutes. And I had a spiritual experience. And that experience is ultimately what put me on this path that I'm on every day that I walk. It's why I do what I do, is a result of that particular experience, which has taken me many different places. So when things get the very toughest and it seems like there's no kind of hope and, what can you do? That voice, that connection, that thing that brought me back from where I was still speaks to me and guides me. And so if you don't know my story, the last 3 years while I'm trying to unite the Amazon and everything, I also got a MRSA infection in my leg and my knee and was going to die on a regular basis for almost 2 years. And I had 8 full knee replacement surgeries in the course of it, including going to the Amazon on a walker and then later going to Brother Phil in a wheelchair, and it's not easy doing that when you're trying to make something happen. But like my brother Phil, and I also know Claudia well enough to know this is true, when spirit speaks to you, there is nothing more powerful or more supporting than that, no matter what's happening to you. And I think that would be my answer, is just, being supported by spirit as we make this walk together, all of us. And there's the 3 of us are talking, and Brother Phil, myself, and Claudia, but there are millions of people. Many of you, I'm sure every one of you on this call is being spoken to by spirit in some way, which is why you're on this call. So we all have that same experience, but I think that's a truth for me. Claudia?
Absolutely. When I look at that question, for me, it's trust and faith in my guides and what I'm led by. And that's just kind of how I live day by day. The question earlier that you were asking, Scott, too, what we see coming down and what's needed. I see it as the three hearth fire stones, the three pillars. One, how respect, how we respect everything and each other that we come across. The next is support. How and what are we supporting? And, it all ties in with love. I think those three key things, love, support, and respect are key pillars. So that's what I would have to add. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
And Scott, I would like to respond to your question about what do I see?
Absolutely. Please, please, please.
So I want to tell a very short story, but it relates directly to your question. And that is that, like everyone here, I struggle trying to determine, what does it all mean? Why are we doing what we're doing? What's the end result going to be? Is there really a higher power? Is there not? All these different things. We all go through that. Well, one day years ago, I went to a garage sale. And there was a long table about 20 foot long, and it had maybe 25 or 30 jigsaw puzzles on it. And they were all marked $2, but one jigsaw puzzle on the end of the table was marked 10 cents. So I asked the lady at the garage sale, I said, how come all these other jigsaw puzzles are $2 and this one's 10 cents? And she became very defensive and she said, oh no, don't worry about it. I've counted it. Every single piece is there, 500 pieces. It's just somebody lost the lid, so we don't know what the puzzle looks like. And I realized it was a perfect analogy for our relationship to spirit and what everything all means. It's like there's this incredible puzzle and we're all pieces of it. Each and every human being in every aspect of all the things that put our planet together are a different piece in this puzzle. But when they're just in a pile in a box and you can't have that oversight view, godlike, spirit-like view of what it is, it's very hard for us to conceive of what that picture looks like. And what I see, the prophecy that Brother Phil and I and Claudia are trying to, work towards is that literally we have discovered that box and we're putting the pieces that look like they go together and finding kindred matches. And just like that jigsaw puzzle missing the lid, when you put enough pieces together with their kindred matches, they begin to give you a vision of what it can look like, what it is the goal is. And every time you put a new piece, it gets easier to complete that puzzle until in the end, we end up with the beautiful thing that Creator meant for it all to be. And so I see Brother Phil and I and Claudia and all the rest of you, we're trying to do these pieces of work as being individual pieces of the puzzle, connecting together one at a time until as it grows, we begin to see what we're trying to build. And at the same time, it gives us guidance because we can see a direction or possible end picture. And it also identifies something else I think is extremely important. There's all those individual pieces of the puzzle, but without any single piece, that puzzle's got a hole in it. It just never is going to be the whole picture, which means that every piece of us have a part to play. And I want to finish by saying that one of my big guide kind of stars in my life is I went out 50, 60 years ago with a spiritual mentor who took me in the woods and said, Patrick, I want you to show me any two trees that are exactly the same, or two birds, or two squirrels, or two mushrooms, or two blades of grass, or two human beings, or two anything that is exactly the same. And I looked around for about 20 minutes and I go, I never realized it before, but nothing is the same. There is a message in that from Creator. Diversity itself is the most sacred thing. And until we come to a place where we can see each of these puzzle pieces as being diversely beautiful, bringing something to the puzzle that no one else can bring, accept that particular piece, we won't be able to come together with peace, with peace on our planet. And I believe that Brother Phil's vision of us coming together and the prophecy's vision of us coming together is both honoring that diversity, at the same time recognizing the importance of all the pieces coming together as one, and recognizing that no matter what piece you are, the puzzle in the end is still the same. We're just in different places in it and can't see all the parts. And I'll so I see this as very hopeful that we're literally starting to see the picture unfold and we're beginning to assemble the puzzle.
That is a terrific analogy, that puzzle analogy, Patrick. Absolutely, just spot on, beautiful. Carol writes, let there be peace, spelled P-I-E-C-E. And we all are having a piece of the piece, right? Ayada writes, yes, emergent, the operative word for these times. Richard writes, yes, we all have pieces to play in creating the humanity puzzle. Connie also loved it. Great analogy, Patrick. We won't see the final picture till all the pieces are in place as it's emergent. Dia Therese has a question, so I've brought you all up and any of you can respond. Is any attention given by the Indigenous global elders to the upcoming reset in the Earth disaster cycle? And I guess I'll also add to that, if any of you want to comment on the message that I think we're all aware of from the Koji Nation that came forward. So would love to hear any and all of you respond to those questions.
Well, you know, all these prophecies talk about the incredible challenges our human family is going to go through in the process of waking up to the fact that exactly what Brother Patrick just shared with us. And I love that, Patrick, because I ran into this thing way back where you can, same thing, you go to every granary in the world, you'd never find two pieces of grain the same. You go to every beach on every ocean side in the world and never find two pieces of sand the same. Each one of us is a unique being. And I think that not only unique, but from my perspective, again, this is my perspective, and this is where the idea of inherent sovereignty comes from, is each of us is a sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. We're born that way. No matter what happens to us, even in the womb, we have life. And we just won't see that part of the puzzle yet, but it's there. And I think that's why, you know, you know, if you do get a chance to bring it up, Scott, I think that vision of what we have, we can see the Amazon, for instance. One of the great things that come out of this is this whole remapping of the world that Brother Douglas Tolchin is doing. And the largest bioregion in the entire hemisphere is the Amazon. When you see that, you see this big green Amazon sitting there. And where you see bioregions, the whole hemisphere broken into bioregions, by which our cultures were organized within bioregions. So literally, we're remapping. I say we and a collective we, all of us working together, are remapping the world to back to bioregions, so we can relate to each other in another way too.
Beautiful, thank you. And you were referencing, is there a photo that you were referencing?
Oh, no, I just put it in the chat. You were asking me, I put it in our chat to you.
Right. So I've got the website that you sent me.
That's our Global Impact Fund.
Right.
And it lists there really quickly the initiatives that we're working on, including Palenque, including this digital backbone to join people across the Americas. It'll give us sovereignty to be able to connect Indigenous people and others who support this alternative way of doing things. Because one of the things the elders shared with us so clearly was, yeah, that's it. is, and if you go down, if you go below, scroll down, there we go. So right there is, this is our holistic health program. So here's the support the rising of the union of the Condor, Hummingbird, Quetzal, and Eagle in Palenque, Mexico, and other global movement to unify our human family. So that's happening. Protect and restore the Amazon in partnership and support with the indigenous people of the Amazon. That's happening. That was really there. We had, by the way, one of the elders that Patrick brought was 100 years old. It was amazing. I mean, to see this gentleman 100. So the Amazon goes to our university. We have our programs are already established at City of Knowledge in Panama. We have now the Global Center in La Ventana is opening. The Digital Backbone, an Architectural Union of the Condor. So these are the initiatives we're working on now. The film series, we got that lined out, which then gives an explanation of the prophecies beginning back in Bolivia, where the Condor and prophecy came true, and so forth. Anyway, those are just the things we're working on.
Beautiful. And I just put into the chat box where people can donate. But for everybody watching on Facebook or on our different broadcast partners, go to SDG Sam David God impactfund.org. SDG impactfund.org. You can learn all about the wonderful work that Phil and his team are doing. And of course, we'll hear a little bit more. I'm going to go to you, Patrick. What would you like to share about the prophecies or about what the Koji Nation have recently said to us?
Well, for those who don't know, I have a special relationship with the Kogi, and that is that I am Kogi now. I traveled there at their request some time ago and did some very special things with them, and they made me their representative to the outside world. So they have a couple of representatives who are indigenous Kogi Mamos, who are their indigenous person speaking to the world. And then they have me, who is their non-indigenous person representing them to the world. And I can tell you that their message, the one that they've made like 3 or 4 different messages over some time. The last one that was just made by my friend Kamiko really, pulls their message down really simply. And that is that the Kogi, I don't know if this is true amongst all indigenous peoples, but the Kogi have a relationship between the universe in a larger way out there and here on Earth. So they live in connection with, the Mother Earth and such, but they also believe in a connection with the stars and the universe and the way galaxies are formed and many different things. So some of their prophecies or visions go beyond planet Earth. They go in a much larger global kind of, universal way. And I think this question you started to ask about, what do they think about this, planetary resetting that happens every so forth and so on. And there's different people have different ideas of how that happens, but it has to do sometimes with poles switching and energy switching and many different things. The Kogi themselves believe that. They believe that that particular shift took place before, and they actually recorded it in the stones and such when it took place. And they believe it's ready to happen again, and it's supposed to happen very shortly. And they believe that the energies of that shift do play a fundamental, they create a fundamental energy that makes the motions that are moving forward take certain directions. And when Brother Phil was talking about the Eagle Condor prophecy, one of the most important aspects of that, which line up with the Kogi prophecies, the other Amazon prophecies in Nepal and the South Pacific and such, is that there will come a time when everything is just kind of going wrong. The environment, the water's becoming poison, you can't breathe the air, greed is starting to take over. All these different things are happening, and we will be given the opportunity to choose which pathway we want to take, leaving from that place. And as Brother Phil shared earlier, there is a pathway which has to do with the wisdom of indigenous peoples, but of all peoples, really, reconnecting with the creator, what the Kogi and some of the other people in South America call the original instructions, meaning that when creator made everything, there was some kind of rules, and we start out kind of following them, and we've like lost our way. So they all believe we need to come back to that place. And there is a strong belief among Kogi people that we're at that choosing point right now, and that an awful lot of people are going down the wrong path, and only a few are veering to take the right path. And so their message to the world is, you guys all better get it together here, because this is the moment. It isn't going to be some other time. Whether or not that's directly related to the shift and, you know, the balance and such, I can't speak to them. I'm sorry, I just knocked my computer over. Got so passionate talking about my brothers and sisters there. There are things about the Kogi in particular which I haven't observed in other areas in the world I've traveled, and that is one that they gifted me with what's called a poporo. And you'll see sometimes they have like a gourd and they have a stick and they're using it and it's circling with it. And a lot of people don't understand exactly what that is. And it is many different things. So I couldn't simply tell you it. But if you want to know the most simple, basic thing it is a indigenous cell phone. It is a device that they can think what they want to share with their brothers that are 1,000 miles away across the jungle, and they can move the stick across and they record on it like an old Edison phone or a phonograph, and then they send that out into spirit, and it is received by the other poporos of the other mamos, and they take their stick and they can decode it and listen to the message. I think people that can do something like that are pretty amazing. And I'm guessing that they might know a little more about what's coming than we do. And so I have a tendency to lean their direction, and I'm sure really trying hard to take the right path.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's wonderful to have you with us as a direct representative of the Kogi people. So thank you. Claudia, I'm going to go to you. We haven't heard from you for a little while. So much happening here. Please share with us whatever is alive for you in terms of this conversation. What would you like to share next?
Yeah, lots moving, and I hope he continues to move that way. Because we've got a lot of work to do and a lot to enjoy. You know, for me, I think that again, it's in the day to day, you know, and I try to be a good person. I try to do my best today. That leads to a good tomorrow, hopefully a good next month, you know, next year, and it just kind of, they're building blocks. I really tend to follow the Mayan calendar. For me, that's so important. It really is a way of life. It's a calendar for all people. That's what Maya means, all people. And it does teach us how to interact with everything within our cosmos and how we are connected, you know, to the heart of the heaven and to the heart of the earth. So to me, that's really important. And just maintaining that balance. I see this gathering as, you know, always a start, you know, or the continuation of many more to be had. Not only these two beautiful elders, these two beautiful men were there as well, but there were so many other beautiful grandfathers and grandmothers from many traditions. And it was, you know, it was beautiful to be able to sing and to dance. That was very important, part of that play, you know, to play with each other and to spend some time sharing food with each other. The ceremonies were beautiful, but it's also those, you know, moments, those everyday moments, you know, when you share your food with each other. those are important. So
It is.
that's where
Breaking bread
that's where I'm at.
together is such a powerful way. There's yeah, that's a, I could go on and on, but I won't. Yes to that. So, we always have music on the show, and I got so caught up with all of your conversation that we haven't had a song yet. So we're going to wind down in a moment. We're going to learn more about how to, we're going to celebrate Patrick's birthday. We're going to learn more about how to support all of these wonderful people. I also want to encourage, I'm seeing our beloved monk Jerry is asking for financial support. So I'm going to play an Omashar song. As most of you know, he's in England. His mother is in her final chapter of life, and he's with her for her passage time. But he has sent us several videos. And so here is a beautiful Omashar video. And while we're watching, I also encourage you to perhaps go to Brother Phil's website and donate, and or Jerry's website and donate. Let's definitely provide some green energy, and as well as enjoying this beautiful music and integration of all that we're hearing, all that we're learning. Finally, put your last questions and thoughts into the chat box. After the song, I'll come back and we'll review some of those comments and questions. So here we go with our beloved brother Omashar coming to us from England. Come on, Omashar. Uh-oh. Well, now that's funny. I had it all queued up. So that means I'm going to need to do it again. While I'm doing that, then I'm going to put the focus on Patrick for a moment, because it's going to take me a minute to restock that video. And it's your birthday. And I have a belief that on a person's birthday time, their birthday week, it's a good time for us to all focus our attention on what you want to experience during this next cycle around the sun. So I'm going to ask all of our global peace tribers to put their vision, their power vision on you, Patrick, and tell us, what do you want to manifest during this next cycle around the sun?
Well, for me, it's been a pretty solid, fast race from 1965 until now, which is a lot of years with no time off, not weekends, not holidays, things like that. And so what I'd really like to have this next year is have some of the things that I'm working on run more smoothly, find ways of streamlining things, so that I don't have to do as much work to maintain the same amount of outcome. And ultimately, I have a dream. I bought land in the middle of the wilderness of New Mexico pretty close to 50 years ago, and I've been building a house there. And my dream is to retire there and spend the last part of my life as that being where my heart and my spirit is, and still traveling and doing everything I do, but get myself there. So if you want to focus on something for me, starting about now, I'm beginning the preparation project of starting to think things out there, starting to finalize building things so that my wife and I could move there maybe by the end of this year. So I'd love to just have a peaceful transition from San Francisco Bay Area to the high remote mountains of New Mexico.
Yes, beautiful vision. So let's all hold the vision, maximum grace for Patrick, more ease in the wonderful work that he's doing, more support, and maximum grace for his beautiful retirement home that he's building and creating in the mountains of New Mexico. And thank you again, Patrick. We love you, and we'll hear more from you in a bit. And here is a beautiful new song from Omashar.
Beautiful.
and my family, we all were together, singing harmonies, my sisters and brothers. I often dream that we're gathered together and we all live in this beautiful garden by a river with my favorite flowers and the trees there, I know them by name. If you'd like a new life, here it is, here it is, here it is. If you'd like a true life, here it is, here it is, here it is. We all are born of the great sun. We all are beloved golden ones. Do you remember? You're part of the story. Do you remember that you are the glory? If you'd like a new life, here it is, here it is, here it is. If you'd like a true life, here it is, here it is, here it is.
Wow. No sound.
It is important to unmute. I was just saying how much I love that song. How's that song strike you, Phil?
Beautiful, 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 beautiful.
Well, lots of birthday blessings, of course, are coming your way, Patrick.
That-
And
may I do the honors?
yeah, please.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday, dear Patrick.
Patrick.
Happy
Happy
birthday
to you.
I don't know we can get harmony that much on the
We'll
Zoom.
call him tomorrow.
You got it. You got it, brother. From everywhere.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone. Thank you.
You know, you can learn a lot more about the amazing life of Patrick McCollum and all that he does by going to his website, which is his name, patrickmccollum.org, patrickmccollum.org. And there's a lot there that he does through the McCollum Foundation, really an entire decade of extraordinary work that he does. You know, the violin story is amazing. So in a moment, I am going to ask you to share this a little bit about the World Peace Violin. And he's good friends with Barbara Marx Hubbard, who he shares a birthday week with. She just turned 90 years old. And Patrick was sharing with me about his shared birthday. I guess you guys had a little Zoom date sharing together. So all the different people that he collaborates with, and of course, always put in your name, email address, so you can stay in touch with what Patrick's doing in the world.
Mm.
Patrick, what would you like to share with our audience, either about the Peace Violin or about your work?
Well, first of all, I'd like to share that my friend Barbara Marx Hubbard has passed away a number of years ago, so it's an amazing thing for me to Zoom with her and have a drink. It was
Was that say Barbara Marx Hubbard when I meant Jane Goodall?
it's actually my dear friend Jane Goodall, but Barbara and I were close friends too, and you know, I miss her every day.
You know, I
So-
was looking at Barbara's name and photo when I was I merged those two together. My 68-year-old brain had a Vulcan mind meld of Barbara and Jane at that moment. I apologize.
Wait till you get to be 80. Wait till you get to be 80. Then you're really going to get some mind lapses. No,
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
I'll speak to the violin, but I wanted to speak for a second about my dear friend Jane, because she is an international treasure. And as we all know, you know, when you're 90 years old, you just don't know how much time there is and what's going to happen. The thing that I so appreciate about my friendship with her that I think is a rare thing is that she and I communicate personally on a regular basis. So we have like a Zoom call, we talk, and we help mentor each other because we both do the same thing and we have the same problems and we're exhausted and all these things. And the one difference between us is that every time I complain about how exhausted I am, she tells me I'm a young kid and that I better get my strength build up because she's still going full bore at 90 with no problem. So it's kind of fun, you know, talking with her. But I wanted to just say that being able to have someone like that you can share your problems with, your challenges. A lot of times in our business, we speak to world leaders and things, and it's not something you can talk to somebody else about or even another spiritual elder or something about. But we have a very good relationship that we can speak about most everything. And for those that don't know, my sister Jane, I'm not a very big drinker or anything, but she and I both like a particular single malt scotch. And so we have this thing where if we ever get to actually see each other, we always have a drink in person. But if we can't, we try to just have a, you know, like at Christmas and New Year's and birthdays and things like that, sort of a connector. And she just shared with me, and I won't go into detail, that while most people are excited about her being her 90th birthday, it's important for people to recognize that she went to 30-something birthday parties in the last week, that she's doing 114 fundraisers over a course of a year and working 300 days this next year, including flying to like 22 countries. So she just said that if she could have her birthday wish, it'd be to be home in her own bed in her house where she grew up with her mom and with some pets and getting to see some family. So we want to remember her too. Her birthday was only a few days ago, and I always remember the incredible things that she's done for all of us and for our planet. And I want to acknowledge her in particular.
I noticed that she sent a message to you for the Palenque gathering. So I'm going to actually attempt to play it here on Facebook. This is just a 1-minute message that Jane sent to you, Patrick, for the Palenque gathering.
Yes.
Hello, this is Jane Goodall, and I want you to know that I'm with you in spirit as you gather from across the Americas and around the world. Such an incredible gathering of Indigenous wisdom has never happened before. And I'm absolutely sure that as a result, there will be a change in consciousness and that people will begin to get together for the long process of healing Mother Earth from which we all came. And a special congratulations to my wonderful friend, Patrick, for the part that he's played in bringing this event together, to making it happen. Best of luck to all of you. Meet well, the spirit of the Creator will be with you, and wonderful good will come of this. Bye.
It's a fun video. That's beautiful. Thank you.
She is a beautiful person, and she is so supportive. So, well, she's friends of mine. She knew Brother Phil's father and Brother Phil, and she has had a long relationship with him. So we're all connected. We're all family.
Yes. Yes.
Would you like me to speak quickly about the violin, or are we running out of time?
Yeah, no, go ahead and tell us about the violin, please, because it is an amazing story.
Okay, so many, many years ago, I was laying in bed one day and I was doing work for world peace, on a smaller scale. And I literally heard a voice speaking to me. And while many of my friends hear voices speaking to them and are guided, it's a rare thing for me. So, extremely rare thing for me. But I heard the voice speaking to me and it said, Patrick, I want you to make a violin. And it's going to become the symbol of peace for the entire world. Well, I'm not a musician. I'm not a music instrument maker. I wouldn't have a clue about how to make a violin, never, nothing about that at all. So I turned to my wife and I said, did you hear that voice? And she goes, what are you talking about? So it was like a voice I was hearing very clearly. And so I answered the voice and I said, well, I don't know how to make a violin, but I'll go to the library tomorrow and I'll get a book and I'll figure out how to do it. I'm a handy kind of guy. And the voice said, I do not want you to learn how to make a violin. I only want you to follow my voice. Fast forward some time, I was doing some peacemaking in the Congo in Africa, and I helped resolve a conflict between two warring tribes where they were doing horrible things to each other. And it got resolved. And as a part of it getting resolved, the people in the region were extremely poor, but they wanted to give me something to just kind of honor that I'd helped. And they gave me a piece of wood from their most sacred tree, which for thousands of years, they make sacred drums and instruments only for connecting with spirit. And they gave me a big block of wood from this tree. So I brought this home, and I had it sitting around for a long time. I forgot about this voice telling me to make a violin, wasn't thinking so much about it. Then a couple of years later, I helped some California tribes in Northern California fight a big fight where the government was going to bulldoze their sacred land and burial mounds and such. And I came forward and helped them with that. And in the course of talking to a couple of the chiefs, I was sharing this about this voice speaking to me and how I'd gotten this piece of wood in Africa. And they took me to a tree that they called the Tree of Peace that, 60 or 70 of the 200 tribes over hundreds of years would go to kind of make their peace place or make agreements. And so I went to this tree and I said, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, And the elder who was with me, there was two elders with me, but the older one said, just return to this tree every so often and remember to share your story about the violin. Well, I did it a couple of times. And on the third time I went there, lightning had struck that tree and it knocked a huge giant branch down onto the ground. And I took that as a symbol. I was supposed to take some of that wood and I got a chainsaw from a friend. I cut a piece of wood and I ended up carving a violin over a long period of time using the piece of wood from Africa and the piece of wood from the indigenous peoples and Native Americans being the front, and the piece from Africa being the sides and the back, because they both connected to spirituality, to a conflict or series of conflicts that were getting resolved, and they carried the energy of that with them. Over a period of years, I started traveling around the world, going to sacred places and sacred sites and things like this. And I would run across amazingly deeply sacred things relating to wars and peace and different things like that. And so I would collect some little thing and I would put it in the violin. The violin currently has over 100 fragments of wars and conflicts covering roughly 6,000 years of history. Some of the pieces are very, very famous events in history, and others are simple events in history. But I'll give you an example of like 3 or 4 of them so you could get an idea. My grandfather was one of the couple officers picked to assess the damage at Hiroshima 8 days after they dropped the atomic bomb. And he went onto the shore and everything was vaporized. And there were children crying and different things. And they pointed to a pile and said that the pile of ash was their grandmother and their parents and what was left of their home. And my grandfather, being a, stupid whatever from Navy days, back in 1940s or whatever, scooped some of that up in a coffee can and brought it home, and it sat with melted pieces of glass and a piece of concrete with part of a person's hand and arm vaporized into it, stuff home to our family. And we had that for 70 or 80 years. And then I'm just looking at one day going, what am I supposed to do with this? And I ground up the ashes of the vaporized people of Hiroshima and I made the varnish for the violin out of those ashes, mixed with, I had the opportunity to travel to Jordan and do peace talks between Israel and Palestine and such. And when I was there, they took us to the baptism site of Jesus. So I took the sand from where Jesus was baptized. I ground that up with the ashes of the Hiroshima. And then I was gifted the ashes of the white buffalo from when the white buffalo was born among the indigenous peoples. And I mix those all together, and that's what I made the varnish out of. So that was one of the really big things that have happened. And since then, the things that are in the violin go beyond human understanding. At some point in time, people started to want to put blessings of their own in the violin with the idea that it was like a battery or something, and that when someone would play it, those blessings would come out on the audience. First of all, it would be a couple of dozen people here and there. Now, well over 1 million people have physically hands-on blessed the violin and put their peace blessings in it. And when I went to India to the first Maha Kumbh Mela, the largest gathering in the history of the planet, I immersed that violin in the Ganges River at the Sangam with 100 million people speaking out peace in their different languages until the trees ripped out and was like an earthquake, and captured the energy of that moment. A number of years later, I took the violin and ended up going to the United Nations, and the United Nations a number of years ago, Jane Goodall, who was the senior messenger of peace, Yo-Yo Ma, Secretary General, and some other people there recognized the violin as a symbol of peace for the entire planet, for the United Nations. And I have since put other different things in it. And I went in the story by sharing that I've made a little space when I die that my ashes can be put in the violin so my voice can join it. And my sister, Jane Goodall, has willed her ashes to be put into the violin when she passes away, so that it will carry the collective prayers and energy of over 100 million people within it as it plays. And I am learning to play it, but the violin is played mostly by our ambassador for the World Peace Violin, Scarlett Rivera, who was Bob Dylan's main music partner, and the New York Times named her the foremost female instrumentalist in the world. So she plays it all over the world. So that's the story of the World Peace Violin.
It's an extraordinary story. Scarlett's been on our show a few times, and I'm going to read some of the comments coming in. Dana writes, I was just going to ask if you'd learned to play it. Richard says, beautiful. Lots and lots of comments. Dana says, maybe we could all bless it. Richard says it must have an amazing energy to it. So definitely take a look at all the comments coming in. And again, everybody, definitely check out all the wonderful work that Patrick is doing. Such a blessing to have you back on the show again, Patrick. And again, you can learn all about him by going to his website. It's his name, patrickmccollum.org. Thank you, Brother Patrick.
Thank you, Scott. This is an amazing show. And, you know, I just want to say one thing, and I don't know whether we'll get a chance to speak again, but people talk about technology as being removed from actual connection, but I can feel the energy of every person on this Zoom. So, you know, it does carry. It carries in ways we can't understand. Okay.
It's a beautiful, you know, we've got people right now from Ecuador, Canada, Australia, all joining us, you know, and we are a beautiful family. The Global Peace Tribe family is a very, very beautiful family. And, you know, we all kind of look out for each other and pray for each other. Speaking of which, in a moment, after we conclude with Phil and Claudia, I will read a message from Eleanor Joy. One of our dearest friends has been going through surgeries, and I'll read her message for everybody. Brother Phil, what would you like to conclude with tonight? What do you want people to know or to understand?
First of all, we are all indigenous peoples of Mother Earth. We all have within every cell in our body iron that was born out of supernovas. So we're also children of the universe. Whatever challenges that are before us, there's no power in heaven and earth that's going to withstand the prophecies and the faith in the covenant we have with our Creator. And I want to say something about that, because we talk about sacred covenant. And they were saying, well, that's kind of a Western Christian Judaic concept. But, you know, in our songs with our white buffalo cattlemen, you might say their chief song she gave us, they're in that, there's a covenant, and that she came around 950 AD, is my cousin Kevin Locke shared, knows a lot about his history. He said about 950 AD. So all her teachings are in the songs, in our sacred songs. And so her chief song starts, anyway, it goes on and says, friend, do it this way. You know, do whatever you do with all your soul, so to speak. I mean, it was inferring in these words. If you get knocked down, get up. You know, and it's inferring, if you get knocked down 1,000 times, get up 1,000 times. Then comes the covenant. When one sits in the sacred hoop of the people, one must be responsible. Then, song says, if you do it that way, whatever you ask for, that's exactly the way it's going to be. And so, you know, that's what I think is really needed right now, is to realize, you know, we are these incredible beings, spiritual beings, we're just awakening up to, that there is no death, just a change of worlds, that all that this earth suit here is just a kind of a temporary container for this incredible soul we have that we can't even describe in words. And that it's time that we now step forward into who we truly are. These loving, kind, compassionate, wise beings. And that knowing that we're surrounded closer in our closest vein by all our relatives right here. We don't see them, but they're here with us. And so all we have to do is just ask in our prayers the best we can. And all that's going on here, we'll understand, no matter how it might seem. There's some purpose way beyond maybe our understanding at this point of why we're going through the tests we go through. Because outwardly it seems like fire and vengeance, but then we begin to realize later in our lives as we look at these things we've gone through, they're really purifying water, purifying us, preparing us for this next part of our journey. So I just want to put a bookmark there, and thank you so much, Scott, and everybody here. I see Michael Cross here, and then see Michael. What a great man! He supported us. There's so many. I wish you could go through the different names I see in the chat here. Have helped us out so much, even though they weren't there in Palenque. Their prayers, because this is all done, by the way. Not one person received any money, any work, salary for this. It was completely all volunteer. Everybody came voluntarily. The funds were raised through the help of Unify, Michael Cross, Scott, all of you helped. So this was truly an effort of the heart. And that's what I think we have to do, is to see each other of the beautiful human beings each of us is, no matter, now, again, that doesn't mean that we aren't wise and walk the spiritual path with practical feet. We have to walk that mystical path with practical feet. But it means also we're way, way more than we really, I think, really realize, especially when we allow ourselves to kind of get caught up in this finite world. Anyway, love you all. Thank you so much, Scott, for taking time to do this. Really appreciate it. And all our relatives with us. So beautiful. Thank you.
And one more time, everybody, we can support the beautiful work that Brother Phil is doing by going to SDG, that's Sam David God, impactfund.org.
Yeah.
The link into the chat box. Let's definitely support beloved Brother Phil. And again, thank you, Phil, for your passion. We love you so much. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Claudia, for joining us.
Yes, Claudia.
Claudia, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I guess I just would like to, remind everyone how strong, potent beings we really are. Like Chief Phil just, mentioned. We'd have an incredible ability to manifest and to magnetize things to us. One of the things I write on the shores of every beach I go to are dreams come true. And it's what we envision. It's what we focus on, and if we can just keep being those examples of how we want things to be, walk our path.
Yes.
Take the actions and, walk the path, walk the talk. And again, just with love, respect, and support, be good to each other, and especially Mother Earth. She supports us. She provides everything for us. I think that's one big thing that we need to unify around is how we take care of her, because she takes care of us. And, she maintains everything on her. So let's be gentle the way we walk upon her. In gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you for being so spontaneous. I just saw her on Unity Earth's meeting a couple hours ago and thought, can you join us? And thank you for joining us so spontaneously. Now stick around, everybody, because I have some really important announcements to make, and they're really, really exciting. So don't go away. I'm going to read just a couple more comments. Ayada writes, such an inspiring, heart-filled gathering tonight. Thank you, Claudia, Brother Phil, Patrick, for joining us and all your loving contributions to humanity. And lots of appreciations coming in from Sylvia, from Sue. So thank you, everybody. Now, we have a lot of events happening this month, and I want you to just kind of stay with me for a moment so you can join us. So I'm going to try and go in chronological order, starting with our big event on Saturday night. It is our anniversary show. I've hosted and produced 500 online shows Some were called Straight Talk. Some were called Saturday Night Alive. Some were called The Sacred Sunday Show. And for the last 2 years, they've all been under the banner of the Awakening World. But we've done 4 complete years now. We're actually officially in our 5th year. And so I've invited my primary co-hosts to come onto the show on Saturday night and reminisce and share and give their vision for our next future, for our next cycle around the sun. It's our birthday as well. So you recognize all of our wonderful co-hosts, Tangela, Trish, Deborah Giusti, Eden, Louis Stroh, Johanna Beekman, Deb Moldau. And I'm really grateful that Marianne Williamson is going to provide a very special blessing and a very special message for us. So join us all on Saturday night. And for those of you who live in the San Francisco Bay Area, it turns out what's amazing, the Global Peace Tribe was born when the pandemic happened. I was going to be co-creating a fundraising event for our beautiful beloved brother Fantuzzi. At the time, he was dealing with Lyme's disease. So we were going to do a fundraising event for him at Deborah Giusti's home. And the pandemic struck. And all of a sudden, we weren't allowed to go out. There was social distancing and all that stuff. So Deborah said, can we make it a Zoom fundraiser, an online event? I said, sure. So Fantuzzi played music. We had a couple of other people play. It was on a Saturday night. And the audience loved it. All of our friends said, hey, you know, we're all kind of stuck. Why don't we do this every Saturday night for a few weeks? Okay. And soon we learned that not only were we all stuck at home on Saturday night, but so is Deepak Chopra, so is Marianne Williamson, so is Greg Braden. So we started getting all of these wonderful presenters to come on Saturday night. And of course, it became Saturday Night Alive for the Global Peace Tribe. And that's how we began. Well, here we are celebrating our 4-year anniversary. I had scheduled April 13th as the night to do it. I scheduled that a couple months ago. And then I discovered that my good friend Katrina is hosting Fantuzzi in her home on Saturday night, April 13th. So I'm actually going to do the show from Katrina's house. I know Patrick's a good friend of Katrina's, and she's a beloved of many of us. And of course, Fantuzzi will be there. So we'll do the show. I'll be upstairs in her husband's office. And then we'll come on down and we will live stream the rest of the concert out for our Global Peace Tribe audience. But for any of you in the Bay Area, if you want to come join us live, be with us for the Fantuzzi concert in the Bay Area, send me a message, email me or text me, and we'll arrange for you to come. So that's happening this Saturday night. On Sunday night, April 14th, the next evening, we are going to be doing a very special hybrid event, again in the Bay Area, called Cancer Conquest. And if any of you are looking for alternatives, alternative treatment for cancer, you can come join us live at the Sunrise Center in Marin County. It's in Corte Madera, or again, watch live. And I will send the Zoom room link out. Actually, it's a registration link. It's free. It's a free event, but I'll send it out to all of our Global Peace Tribers. So join us on Sunday night, April 14th at 7:00 p.m. for Cancer Conquest. And then next week, we'll be coming to you live from the New Living Expo. And we have a whole lot of other hybrid events. We're going to be doing a big event again in the Bay Area in Sebastopol on Thursday night, the 18th, with the Twin Ray. And I know that many of you, of course, we've had the Twin Ray on this show probably more than any other presenter. But for any of you that want to really get to know them more fully, if you're in the Bay Area, come join us live on April 18th in Sebastopol. I'll be there with Deborah Giusti. And for those of you who can't join us live, no problem. I'm going to live stream it out to our Global Peace Tribe audience. And then we've got more things happening. We're doing a special event with Danny Sheehan. Learn all about the latest of what's going on with UFO and UAP and government disclosure. And so it goes. So there's a lot happening, and it's really important. Join the Global Peace Tribe. If you haven't already joined us, for all of you who are watching on Facebook or different global partners, come and join us. It's easy. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com. Click register for the new season. That'll take you to our registration page, and you're going to get all the Zoom room links for all of our events from now through the end of June. And we're going to be doing always the Awakening World every Wednesday night and Saturday night, and all these special events that we're adding. So it's going to be a powerful, abundant spring, and we want all of you to join us. Okay, I think I got it all in. Also want to acknowledge Andrew Kane has a big event happening, which we're going to support when we get a little closer to Earth Day. There's a lot of Earth Day events happening, including our own Earth Day event, Andrew Kane's Earth Day event. There's another Earth Day event that's being put on in New York City. So a whole lot going on. And I think Andrew put into the chat box a little bit. Finally, I am going to read the announcement from Eleanor Joy. She sent me an email, which I'm going to open up and read to all of you, that gives her update. She writes, and is she back in? Is there any chance she came back on? I know she got medvaced, and no, she's not with us. Okay, so here is her message. I'm finally getting transferred by Medivan to Nanaimo, that's her home, in about 1 to 1.5 hours. This was written to us at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. We will have to miss the show, but Ian will be on, and so will Waterfall. And a big thank you to Ian and Waterfall for their amazing support of her. They still don't have a clue why I'm having so much shortness of breath. Anyway, I'll be in a rehab program, plus now we'll start some alternative therapy while in the hospital. It seems that bed rest is one of the big therapies for me right now, to give my body a chance to heal from all the procedures and the open heart surgery. Big hugs and love to everyone. And again, so much gratitude for all the Awakening World loving support. And so let's just take a moment and send maximum grace to beloved Eleanor Joy. I'm going to go to gallery view so we can all see each other. Maximum grace for Eleanor Joy. Maximum grace for Eleanor Joy. Maximum grace for Eleanor Joy. And I see our beloved brother, Jerry Anderson, is there. I don't know what's going on, but I saw Jerry has an urgent plea for financial support. Jerry, send me a message, tell me more about it. And then on an upcoming Awakening World show, we'll let the audience know more about what's going on for you and how we can best support you. Because that's what we do. We all support each other. Thank you to Michael Krause and Unify and all that you do to get our word out to the world. And thank you, everybody. You all are wonderful peacemakers, creating in wonderful, wonderful ways. So thank you, everybody. And I look forward to celebrating our anniversary with you on Saturday night, maybe even some of you in person. Sylvia, are you raising your hand? Okay, go ahead.
I got another update from Eleanor that she is still waiting for the transport to Nanaimo. And that was about half an hour or so ago. And I also wondered, Nan Claudia, would you have any interest, energy in singing or praying us out?
Well, that puts you on the spot there, Claudia. Is that something you're willing to do?
I would definitely pray us out. I do not sing publicly, but I will pray us out. Thank you. Infinite Spirit, great Creator, Mother, Father, we give thanks for us gathering here today, for the love in our hearts, our open minds. May we be able to continue to gather here this way. On this day of Canil, which is a sacred seed, we give thanks as well for everything that has been planted, for the seeds that will keep germinating and growing so that we can all share in this abundance. We give thanks to Creator, to the Former, to the Divine Mother, to the waters, to the air, to the heart of the heavens and the heart of the earth. We give thanks. Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Claudia, for that you've been very spontaneous with us today. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Patrick and Brother Phil and all of our Global Peace Drivers God's blessings, everybody. Hope to see you on Saturday night. Take care.
Many blessings.
Happy birthday, Patrick.
Thank you,
Happy
Claudia.
Okay,
birthday,
good to see you
Patrick.
all. Love
Happy
you. Love you. Happy
birthday.
birthday again.
Happy birthday.
More.
Patrick.
Happy birthday.
You should sing her up, I think.